received a non-degree certificate as a fellow at the School of Criticism and Theory at Cornell University, New York, and served as a senior international bibliographer for the publications of the Modern Language Association of America, PMLA. In addition to supervising 10 PhD theses, Sir has published over 100 research articles in journals indexed by Scopus and Web of Science. Born in Tiruchirappalli, Sir has grew up in Kerala and pursued studies in literature in both Kerala and Uttar Pradesh. Sir has also traveled across 20 Indian states and internationally to the US, UK, France, Singapore, Malaysia, Germany, Japan, Hong Kong, South Korea, Thailand, Sri Lanka, Taiwan, and Ireland. His research interest is situated at the intersection of comics and medicine, or what is generally termed as graphic medicine. He focuses on issues such as the rhetorical potency of images in the realm of graphic medicine, the implications of graphic medicine in medical science and literary studies, according to him, are perspectives or presentation of illness in popular and literary cultures, comics in the age of global health, humanities, graphic medicine, and bioethics, among others. According to him, the productive conversation between comics and medicine is rewarding in that it has implications for science studies, cultural and literary studies, biocultural studies, and global health humanities. Sir has also authored and edited more than 10 books. I would like to list them: Drawing the Pandemic, COVID-19 and Graphic Medicine, Pandemics and Epidemics in Cultural Representation, Infertility Comics and Graphic Medicine, Mental Disorders and Graphic Medicine, Gender, Eating Disorders and Graphic, The Idea and Practice of Reading, Edgar Allan Poe, Tales and Other Writings, AIDS in Cultural Bodies, Scripting the Absent Subject, to list a few. His 11th book, titled Dementia and Graphic Medicine Beyond the Living Death Narrative, is his forthcoming from Routledge, UK in 2026. His interviews, articles, profiles, podcasts are published in media such as The Hindu, The Caravan, Scroll, The Pioneer, Wiley Research, and many more. He has also been serving as a faculty on contract at the Indian Institute of Information Technology, IIT Trichy. Besides teaching and research, Sir has served in various research, academic, and administrative committees. He has been awarded the Best Performer Award in NIT for more than a couple of times. We are indeed delighted to have such a resourceful person and happy to introduce you to a very unique topic, medical humanities. We welcome you, sir, to lead us into this valuable session. Once again, over to you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for the.
Yeah. So may I, Dr. Madan?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you. So good evening, everyone. And it's such an immense pleasure to be part of this FDP. My special thanks to Yuvraj, who has been coordinating with me for several months. And thanks also due to Madan Kumar and Julian for that wonderful introduction. Rather, it was a very patronizing and a very detailed introduction. Thank you, Dr. Julian. So the topic of my presentation is medical humanities. And as the introduction made it clear, I specialize in medical, or what is also called as health humanities. And I've been working in this field for more than a decade. My first book, AIDS in Cultural Bodies, is my first attempt in health humanities. So, and thank you all the participants for being part of this wonderful FTP. Are my slides visible? Please confirm. One of you please confirm.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Sure.
Sir.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay, I have more than 100 slides, and I will try all my best to, sort of compress them in an hour or so. So hopefully by 7:10, I'll close my session, and I would be happy interacting with all the participants. So these are the themes that I plan to cover in this presentation. So I'll start by talking a bit about health humanities, definitions, and contexts. Briefly take you to the history of health humanities. Specifically, I'll be discussing the difference between medical humanities and health humanities, and the new phase in health humanities called critical medical humanities, and a bit of philosophical aspects of being ill, illness narratives and narrators. Because the field is so new, I thought it makes more sense that I also introduce you some journals and research institutions, and I will close with some remarks. And the level of the content that I'm presenting here, it's very basic and introductory. You know why? Because this is one of those fields which is gaining a lot of attention across the country and the globe. So I'm sure that this is not being taught in various institutions or colleges. So perhaps I don't want to make it tough or advanced. So the idea is to introduce you to this key terms and the key debates in humanities. So the first question that I would like to address is why health humanities? So here are my three reasons why health humanities and the importance of health. The first one is health is a universal concern, which is to say that it transcends boundaries of race, class, caste, and other social determinants. The second reason why health humanities is important is one of the core existential structures shaping our lives. And finally, thanks to COVID, which has made us to think and reflect on the importance of health. The second question is what are the forces shaping the rise of health humanities? To put it in simple terms, why or in what particular conditions or contexts did the health humanities evolve? So I have several reasons listed here. So if you're making notes, please uh, take the photograph or make note of all these reasons. So I will just read out all the reasons and then explain each of them. The first is increased medical specialization and biomedicalization. The second is patient activism. Third, social movements such as disability rights, feminism, etc. Fourth, the problem of unethical human experimentation in the post World War II era. Fifth, anti-psychiatric movement. And sixth, growing dissatisfaction among patients. Philosophically, it's called epistemic injustice. I'll come to that particular expression in a minute or so. So what I have here is a list of reasons or certain kind of material conditions which actually led or paved way to health humanities. The most important point that I want to stress here is this idea of epistemic injustice. The term epistemic injustice is a term introduced by a philosopher, and her name is Brinda Fricker. Mirinda Fricker, Miranda, Mirinda Fricker, Fricker. So she published a very interesting book, and the title of the book is Epistemic Injustice, Power and the Ethics of Knowing. So, what is epistemic injustice? According to Miranda Fricker, epistemic injustice is the dismissal of patient narratives by medical professionals. So, if there is one major reason why health humanities rose is because of the epistemic injustice, where patients felt that their narratives, their voice, is not fully addressed or covered or listened to by the medical professionals. Let me take you through a very short history of health humanities. And please make note that the history that I trace here is in US context. So, health humanities or medical humanities may be divided into three major phases. The first one is medical humanities from 1960s to 1970s. The second phase is called health humanities, roughly 1980s to 2016. And the third phase is called critical health humanities, that is roughly 2016 onwards. But even before I trace the history of all these three phases, I thought it's instructive to know who coined this term. This term came into existence, medical humanities came into existence in 1948. And it is a term coined by George Sarton and Francis Segal. They used this particular term, medical humanities, in an obituary column. Ironic, but then that's a fact. That said, I just want you to understand that it doesn't mean that medical humanities was not practiced before that. There are several instances, there are several illustrious personalities who have been thinking of, medicine and bridging it with humanities. Think of a person like Da Vinci and his medical illustrations and so on. So I just want you to understand the term came into being in 1948, but as a practice, it was there time immemorial. So I'm quoting the original sentence where the term medical humanities appeared for the first time. I quote, his death referring to Edmund Andrews at the early age of 48 is a sad blow to the medical humanities, for very much could have been expected from. So this is the sentence where the term or expression medical humanities was coined for the first time. As I said, this is part of an obituary column and it was published by ICs. Now let's answer what is medical humanities and what are some of the central debates of medical humanities. So, medical humanities, the major aim of medical humanities was to create a gentleman physician. And the idea of a gentleman physician is someone who excelled in observation, empathy, self reflection, and good communication. And the second aim of health humanities was to use arts and humanities, such as philosophy, literature, history, fine arts, etc., to develop that faculty. So, as you can see, medical humanities had just one agenda, that is to make a sensitive or to create and develop a sensitive professional, a gentleman physician who had or who mastered good observation, communication, listening, empathy, and self reflection. Here I'm quoting from a very popular book by Nicole M. Piemonte. The name of the book is Afflicted. And this particular quote, which I'll read in a minute, explains the importance of introducing humanities for the professionals. By that I meant humanities for the physicians. I quote, using literature, narrative, film, poetry, photography, and art to facilitate reflection and dialogue engages students' moral imagination and safely guides them back to the human elements of suffering from which so many would rather flee. I've just highlighted two, three key terms in this quote so that you understand the importance of medical humanities. The first one is how arts, literature, poetry, or liberal arts and social sciences put together encourage A, critical reflection, B, moral engagement, and third, it enables the professionals to empathize with the human dimensions of suffering. So these are the three reasons why arts and humanities are introduced for the professionals. To conclude, medical humanities is a remedy to empathy decline, moral erosion, and clinical hypocompetence among healthcare professionals. And what does the word clinical hypocompetence mean? Clinical hypocompetence means that you are technically proficient, but you lack or you are poor in communication, ethical judgment, reasoning, and so on. The second phase of medical humanities is called health humanities. Now, what are the key features of health humanities? The first key feature of health humanities is that it gave importance to the patient point of view or patient perspective. As you might know, or as you might remember, in the first phase, doctor was so central to medical humanities. Patient was not so, was not given importance, neither his point of view or perspective. But move to the second phase of medical humanities called health humanities, where patient, his point of view, his perspective was so central for the entire debate. And one research article which I recommend that you read is written by Roy Porter. And this article is a very, it's a very seminal article in health humanities. So the title of this article is The Patient View, Doing Medical History from Below. The article was published in 1985 and was a call to focus on medical history from below. That is to say, instead of paying attention to physician centric narrative, this particular article titled The Patient View stressed the need for a patient's history. That's why it's called as, a history, writing history from below. Now, what are the major implications of this shift? This is important because it helps patients to find a language for their experience as well as take control of their own narrative, which is different from the physician's narrative. And this also led to what is called as patient storyteller. According to Steven Wilson, I quote, how do patients find a vocabulary that allows them to take control of their experience and negotiate the fall of language? The second feature of health humanities is that health humanities is more inclusive, which is to say that it engages every possible stakeholder. For example, doctors, caregivers, paramedics, patients, family members, and so on. The third aspect of health humanities is that health humanities replaced the focus on medicine. As Teresa Jones, quote, argues, I quote, medicine is only a minor determinant of health in human populations alongside other social factors such as class, education, occupation, environment, race, and stigma, unquote. That is, medicine plays a relatively minor role in shaping one's health and health outcomes compared to social determinants such as class, caste, education, occupational conditions, and environmental factors, etc. And finally, the emergence of health humanities coincided with the rise of what Lisa Daedrich calls as politicized patient. The politicized patient is an active, critical figure in healthcare engaging with medical, social, and cultural systems. The best example for the figure of a politicized patient is the Cancer Journals by Arthur Luth, published in 1980, and also one by Susan Sontag titled Illness as Metaphor, published in 1978. There are three important features of a politicized patient: one, agency; two, narrative power; and three, community building. Agency would mean the ability of a patient to question medical authority and advocate one's needs. Narrative power is using personal stories and narratives to reveal systemic injustices. And finally, community building is collaborating with others to address structural inequities in healthcare. And the last aspect or importance of health humanities is how arts and humanities were used as enablers of health and well being. In the first phase, you might remember that's the health medical humanities phase, arts and humanities were used as supplements. They were primarily used to improve or cultivate physicians' empathy, communication, ethical reasoning, and so on. But in the second phase, health humanities, arts and humanities are seen as enablers of health and well being. Some of the important examples would be, art therapy, scriptotherapy, and bibliotherapy. Scriptotherapy means writing having a therapeutic value, and bibliotherapy would mean reading having a therapeutic value. So basically, arts and humanities were perceived or interpreted as important for enabling one's health. Here is the photograph of the most important voice of health humanities. And her name is Joanna Trotman Banks. She passed away in 2007. And she's very important in the history of health humanities because in 1972, she was basically an English professor, but then she held a regular full time faculty position in a medical college. And the second importance of Joanna is that she was the founder of the most prestigious and esteemed medical humanities journal, Literature and Medicine. I recommend two books here. The first one is Health Humanities by Paul Crawford, and the second one is Health Humanities Reader by Teresa Jones. These are two very important, books which would help you to understand the nuances of both the terms, medical and health humanities. Another important moment in the history of health humanities is narrative medicine. So, narrative medicine was founded by Rita Sharon. And interestingly, Rita Sharon is a PhD in English literature, and she is also a physician. And she introduced this term narrative medicine. What is narrative medicine? I quote: the effective practice of medicine requires narrative competence, that is, the ability to acknowledge, absorb, interpret, and act on the stories and plights of others. So basically, narrative medicine trains physicians, doctors, practitioners with the skills to listen, interpret, and ethically engage with the patient stories. So, narrative medicine is a kind of a training program meant for physicians. And this is one of the most important text by Rita Sharon. It's titled Narrative Medicine Honoring the Stories of Illness. And some other important books published during this period include Howard Brody's Stories of Sickness, 1987, Arthur Kleinman's The Illness Narratives, 1988, Arthur Frank's The Wounded Storyteller, 1997, and Anne Hawkins' Reconstructing Illness in 1999. These are the foundational texts. So someone who is planning to, float a course on health humanities, or someone who is just developing a research proposal, I very strongly recommend that you make note of these texts and read them. Another significant genealogy that contributed to the growth of health humanities is bioethics. And what is bioethics? Bioethics examines the ethical, social, and the legal dimensions of medicine, healthcare, and life sciences. And I think some of you might have read the important works of Michel Foucault, and he was also very instrumental in shaping health humanities. I just want you to draw your attention to a couple of books. One is The Birth of a Clinic, and the second is Discipline and Punish. Of course, he's written a lot of them, but then these are the two important books which in some way shaped our thinking about health humanities. Now, let's move to UK. As I said, the first part, it's predominantly the way how health humanities developed and evolved in the US. But UK, it was slightly different. The development of health humanities in the UK is slightly different from the US. According to Alan Bleakley, there are three aspects. They are arts for health, role of welcome trust, and medical humanities approach in medical education. The Arts for Health was a movement in the UK which emphasized the therapeutic benefits of engaging with the arts. It's like your, scriptotherapy or bibliotherapy. The second is the role of Welcome Trust. The Welcome Trust is a global charitable foundation that funds research to improve health. The Wellcome Trust has been instrumental in advancing health humanities in the UK by funding research projects and initiatives. And finally, medical humanities approach in medical education, which aims to broaden the training of healthcare professionals by integrating literature, ethics, history, and arts into its curriculum. The third phase of health humanities is called critical medical humanities. This phase, called critical medical humanities, was inaugurated by the Edinburgh Companion to the critical medical humanities. It's a collection of essays edited by Anne Whitehead and Angela Woods and was published in 2016. Let me explain some of the key features of critical medical humanities. So, the first feature of critical medical humanities is that it paid attention not just to the health of the individual, but to the collective or planetary health. So, the first two phases, that is medical humanities and health humanities, paid attention to doctor's relationship with patient, and to patient stories. But then the third phase, called the critical medical humanities, shifted its attention from the health of an individual to the collective health, which is to say that critical medical humanities focused on two important aspects: the non human and more than human perspectives. Now, what does non human and more than human mean? Non human would cover biological life, which includes viruses, bacteria, plants, animals, material environments like air, water, soil, pollutants, and climates, and technologies, which include medical devices, pharmaceuticals, algorithms, data systems, and so on. The second one is more than human, which is to say that it emphasizes that humans are only one part of it. This is very much like your, post-human approach to medical humanities. So this focus on human, animal, and environmental health, or more than human perspective, is called One Health Initiative. And One Health Initiative is basically thinking health beyond human health. The two key terms of critical medical humanities are entanglement and multiscalarity. Those who have been following posthumanism can easily relate to these very important terms in posthumanism. But then let me explain what is entanglement. Entanglement, in very simple terms, is interconnectedness or interdependence of what? Of human, non-human, and ecological systems. While multiscalarity addresses health across different levels, different scales, from the personal to the global. The second important aspect of critical medical humanities is that it had a closer engagement with critical theory, queer and disability studies, activist politics, and other allied fields. Put differently, critical medical humanities paid attention to what Olivia Banner, in her book Communicative Biocapitalism, calls as reading for structures. Now, what is this idea of reading for structures? Reading for structures is paying attention to how health of an individual is shaped by political, cultural, social, and historical factors. For instance, let me give you an example here. For instance, poverty, climate change, education, employment, and job security, among others. To quote Fitzgerald and Callard, what if disease were not a bodily fact that needed finer interpretation, but a way of describing a relation between a body, a history, and an environment? So basically, critical medical humanities inaugurated a shift from individual health to how larger than life forces structures or influences one's health. The second important aspect is it also paid attention not just to the individuals, but to the collective, to the planetary, and so on. Here is a visual representation of all these factors. And this is actually published in the Lancet in 2017. This is an infographic, and I just want you to pay attention to the topmost layer, where you have the important drivers which impact one's health. Those include ecological drivers, proximate causes, mediating factors, and their impact on health. Let me give you one good example to illustrate how larger than life forces influence one's health. Here is the sequence: COVID 19, loss of job, less access to nutritious food, poor immune system, loss of individual or family health. This sequence shows how COVID 19 can trigger a chain reaction of negative effects, starting with job loss, which means you would have a reduced access to nutritious food, which means poor nutrition would weaken your immune system, ultimately leading to declining health for individuals and their families. Now, what are the two major uses of health humanities? The first one is health humanities uncovers medical science as an imperfect or incomplete science. This means that health humanities challenges the notion of medical science as a flawless discipline. By doing so, it actually highlights the limitations, biases, and gaps inherent in medical science. The second important contribution of health humanities is it exposes patient objectification. It talks or it runs debates on how doctors increasingly are relying on technology. It also exposes practices like disease mongering, emphasizing the need for a more ethical, empathetic, and human centered approach to healthcare. What are the major approaches to health humanities? So these are the following approaches. Let me read. The first one is medium approach, period approach, region or area approach, disease approach, thematic approach, archives, medical and social histories of disease and organs. The first one, medium approach, is examining health through different media forms such as comics, films, verbal narratives, and painting, which is the most popular approach in health humanities. The second is period approach, which is to examine health in specific historical context. For example, let's say health of Indians during colonial period and how that was represented in literary or cultural texts. So basically, this is looking at the health of a group of people or collective or a nation within a particular time period. It may be colonial, post-colonial, 18th century, 19th century, and so on. The third approach is based on the location or area, which is to say Indian health humanities, Canada, South Asia, and so on. The underlying assumption is they're all different, culturally inflected, they have different histories, genealogies, and so on. Disease approach is paying attention to a particular disease form, its evolution, and how it is represented in literature, films, or other media. Then there is a thematic approach, which is investigating topics like biocapitalism, medical pluralism, pharmaceuticalization, epidemics, organ transplantation, and so on. Archives is where you read archives, you visit museums, you visit archival libraries, and so on, and you consult archives to construct a social history of disease. And finally, you have medical and social histories of disease and organs, for example, Skin by Claudia Bentham. Some of the major areas of inquiry in health humanities. This is just an indicative list. The first one is representation and writing of health or illness in various media. Second is teaching health humanities or medical pedagogy. bioart, ethics, which is biomedical and medical ethics, post D pre-colonial environments and health, pandemics and epidemics and cultural memory, narrative medicine. The first one, representation and writing of health or illness in various media, is the most popular approach of understanding and studying health humanities, especially in English and culture studies department. The second one, teaching health humanities, which is also called medical pedagogy, focuses on what is taught to the doctors. So this is more about pedagogy, it's more about medical curriculum, it's about syllabus and so on. The third, which is an evolving field, is called bioart. It's an art by using biological materials to explore themes like life, death, health, ethics, and so on. The fourth one is ethics. There are two types. One is biomedical, and the second one is medical ethics. And both of them examine dilemmas in healthcare, such as patient autonomy, justice, issues like consent, resource allocation, and so on. The next theme is post D pre colonial environments and health. As I said, it's like one of those period approaches to health, which is to say how health is shaped by colonial, post colonial kind of aspects. Pandemics and epidemics is yet another popular approach to health humanities. And finally, you have narrative medicine. Let me also give you another list. Ethics of caring and nursing, complementary and alternative medicine, which is called CAM, digital health humanities, indigenous health-based methods, health and politics. I mean, very much Foucauldian here, bio-governmentality, biopower, biosecurity, health and intersectionality, geography, race, gender, sexuality, religion, health humanities and inclusion like ableism, LGBTQI plus human rights, and finally language and rhetorical analysis. These are some of the major sub-themes of health humanities. So let me go one by one. So the first one is ethics of caring and nursing. So the ethics of caring and nursing would pay attention to relational care. It actually advocates for respect, compassion, accountability, and things like that. Next theme is complementary and alternative medicine, which is focusing on Ayurveda, acupuncture, herbal remedies, and so on. This is also called as medical pluralism. The third one is digital health humanities, which is basically looking at the interaction of health humanities with digital media, tools, data, and how they reshape health narratives and so on. Indigenous health-based methods, which is looking at health practices by Adivasis, tribal health practices, and documenting them and reading them and so on. Health and politics, as I said, is very Foucauldian here. We borrow ideas from Michel Foucault's biopower, biosecurity, and so on. The emphasis here is to look at the how state and larger institutions exercise their power on individual health. You have health and intersectionality like geography, race, gender, sexuality, religions, and that should really help you to understand things like differential access to health, health beliefs, and health inequities, and so on. Health humanities and inclusion would include ableism, LGBTQ, human rights, and issues related to it. And finally, language and rhetorical analysis. Now, if you are interested in studying these issues, there are two options for you. One is to choose canonical literary texts, or option two is to choose non canonical illness narrative. Let me give you some example here. For instance, look at some of the canonical literary texts. The Plague by Albert Camus, which is about bubonic plague epidemic. The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann, which is about tuberculosis, sanatoriums, and so on. Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, which deals with mental health, trauma, Wit or semicolon T by Margaret Edson, which is about ovarian cancer and so on. See, these are like canonical literary texts, and you are applying, health humanities lens to them. But then there's also possibility of looking at the illness narratives or non-canonical texts. Some of the most important landmark non-canonical texts include When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanidhi, The Year of Magical Thinking by Juan Didier, Darkness Visible, a memoir of madness, Autobiography of a Face by Lucy Greeley. These are some of the most important non-canonical illness narratives. So there are two possibilities. Either you choose canonical literary works, cultural texts, and apply a health humanities lens to it, or choose non-canonical illness narratives. Now, one of the most important term in health humanities is illness and disease. And from health humanities point of view, illness and disease are different, and this difference is discussed elaborately in this landmark book called The Illness Narratives: Suffering, Healing, and the Human Condition. It's published in 1988 by anthropologist Arthur Kleinman. Now let me explain you how are these words different. Disease versus illness. Disease is a biological dysfunction, but illness, simply put, is how you experience a particular disease. I'll give you a very small example. Let's take the case of headache. Headache, from a disease point of view, means a pain in the head, with the pain being above the eyes or the ears, behind the head, or in the back of the upper neck. This is about headache as a disease, headache as a condition. It is headache from a pure biological point of view. But individuals experience headache differently. For example, some might say, I quote, feels like a pair of pliers on the optic nerve, like a football helmet 7 size, as though the devil pulls his pitchfork out only to heat it up to put it back. I feel a severe burning sensation while at the same time a freezing sensation. So there's a lot of difference between the first part and the second part. The first part, the idea of disease from a pure biological dysfunction, which is to see something as a failure of a physiological system. But on the other hand, illness is how you experience the disease. It's called the felt experience of disease. It's how individuals construct meaning to that particular disease. And this is so important. This differentiation is so central to the health humanities, which leads us to understanding of three important registers of body. I'm quoting Sean Gallagher here from his book, How the Body Shapes the Mind. Sean Gallagher talks of three registers of the body or three aspects of the body. The first one, the body as it can be scientifically and objectively measured, which is to interpret the body as scientifically measurable. The second one is the body as it is experienced by the subject, which is to talk of the body as subjectively experienced by an individual. And finally, the body as it operates outside the subject's conscious awareness, although still having an effect on the subject's experience. Some examples might include your posture, your muscle memory, some kinds of habits where those aspects unconsciously influence your health. Finally, let me talk a bit about how felt experiences of illness are typically voiced through storytelling. The deeply personal and subjective experiences of illness, often referred to as felt experiences, are best expressed and shared through storytelling. Storytelling serves as a powerful medium for individuals to articulate their emotions, struggles, and perspectives, providing a voice to their illness journey. Now, let me introduce you to some of the basic philosophical aspects of being ill. The first important aspect of being ill is illness is a disruptive force. It's a kind of a crisis at different level. One, habitual body. Two, our sense of time, space, identity. Three, language. And four, motions of daily life. So the argument here is how illness disrupts our sense of familiarity. For instance, our sense of time, space, and identity. For example, time may slow down or become fragmented, or it may be marked by medical appointments, long waiting periods, or cycles of pain and recovery. Our sense of space may also shrink. For instance, think of a hospital room or bed, limiting our movements and interaction. And how does illness affect our language? Illness actually makes your language poor. In other words, you are actually struggling for capturing the subjective experience of illness. For example, pain. Pain resists the preciseness of language. Pain blunts language in some form. And finally, the motions of daily life, which is to say that illness disrupts the rhythms of daily life, be it your work, be it your social interactions, hobbies, or routines. So, one key theme that I want you to carry here is how illness reshapes our existence itself, temporally, spatially, and also modes of expression and everyday practices. I have two beautiful expressions which capture this philosophical aspect of illness, one by Michael Bury, where he describes illness as a biographical disruption, and Welly and Fouque calls it as a desynchronization. So, the first important aspect here, the philosophical aspect of illness, is how illness fundamentally changes our living condition. The second concept of illness is healthy body versus ill body. When you're healthy, self and the body work in unison. But illness breaks that fundamental unity between the self and the body. In other words, illness disrupts the unity of the self and the body. Illness becomes an obstacle for that unison. And this is beautifully explained by Drew Leder in his book, The Healing Body, published in 2024. I quote, our very own body can see, can seem an enemy or a mysterious stranger. The third aspect of ill body and the healthy body is that the healthy body is often absent or transparent. The absent body idea is proposed by Drew Leder, a phenomenologist, and transparent body is a concept proposed by Sartre. Because when you are healthy, your body becomes transparent. The body, we are not conscious of our body. But then, when we become ill, the body appears, which is to say, the body demands our attention through pain, through discomfort, or dysfunction. And Elizabeth L. Rafai, a very important critic, argues, to quote her, the body forces itself into our consciousness. Another key aspect of health humanities is called in betweenness. And as the word makes it clear, to be in between is in a state or space that involves dynamics of continuity, separation, transition, overlapping, and mobility. In the context of health humanities, in betweenness means chronic illness. I'm quoting a term introduced by Arthur Frank in his book At the Will of the Body. According to Arthur Frank, we are living in a society which he names as remission society. But then what is this remission society? Remission society is a term introduced by Arthur Frank to describe individuals whose conditions are manageable but not curable. Think of cancer, AIDS. The best example is diabetes, where you can manage it, but you can never cure it. And this Canadian sociologist, Arthur Frank, characterizes the contemporary times, the present times, as a remission society. I quote, sickness and wellness shift definitively as to which is foreground and which is background at any given moment. In the remission society, the foreground and background of sickness and health constantly shade into each other. I've given you some examples here. The next important question is what does it mean when we say that we are practicing health humanities? The first is health humanities treats health, illness, medicine as a cultural phenomenon. That is to say, health humanities emphasizes that health and illness are not purely biological, but is also shaped by cultural, societal, and historical forces. So, one point of entry is to see or deem or consider health, illness, and medicine as a cultural phenomenon. There is a beautiful expression which captures this. It's called biocultural entity, which is to say that the body is both biological and cultural. While biology determines its function, mechanisms, etc., our beliefs, how we perceive ability, beauty, illness, health, etc., would be part of the culture. So basically, in health humanities, a human body is a biocultural entity. It's not purely a biological entity, but then it melds with the cultural, historical, social, and other factors as well. Now, what are the literary theories that you can use to study health humanities? So, I'm going to give you one or two, theories which might be useful, especially if you're from literature background. The first one is affect theory. Why affect theory? Because you know that affect pays attention to the role of emotions, feelings, bodily effects, and so on. And I think you would all agree that illness, after all, is an affective event. The second most useful lens is phenomenology. And phenomenology explores the lived experiences of illness. It focuses on the subjective and embodied dimensions of health and suffering. And phenomenology, for your information, is basically a philosophical theory, but then it's a very useful theoretical model to study illness narrative because it gives a lot of emphasis on subjective or the embodiedness of health and suffering. The third one is ethical criticism, which is it examines patient autonomy, caregiver responsibilities, and the ethical implications of medical practice. Finally, narrative theory, it examines the structure, form, and function of illness narrative within a culture. There are other possible theories as well. For example, you may use disability studies, queer studies, gender studies, trauma studies. These are other very popular, commonly used framework to study illness narratives. Illness narratives are broadly classified into multiple categories: physical, mental, neurodegenerative, injury narratives, pain narratives, pandemic narratives, unexplained conditions, neurodevelopmental, disability narratives. And please understand that this categorization is purely for academic purpose. I say this with the pure understanding that when you are physically ill, you're also mentally deprived or mentally uh, you may feel mentally bad. So all of them do overlap and so on. So physical would mean I have given you examples like bodily illnesses like cancer, TB, polio, HIV, AIDS. Mental would mean OCD, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. And neurodegenerative mean dementia, Parkinson, injury, pain. Pandemic would mean COVID-19, Spanish flu, and unexplained conditions, CFS and MCS. And finally, you have neurodevelopmental, which includes autism, ADHD, and so on. Another possible distinction that one can make in health humanities is between acute and chronic. They primarily, they are different in terms of onset, duration, and lived experience. Acute conditions are sudden, short term, and often temporary, typically disrupting life briefly before resolution. But chronic conditions are long lasting and persistent, marked by gradual onset, unpredictability, and continuous forms of loss. So, this is another way to categorize and think about health. The next important aspect is Indian illness narrative. The first thing that I want to tell you is Indian illness narratives are an under researched field. And some of the significant works in Indian illness narratives are Healed by Manisha Koirala, an actress, Close to the Bone by Lisa Ray, again an actress. Both of them discuss on cancer, Lady Doctors, The Untold Stories of India's First Women in Medicine by Kavita Rao. If I had to tell it again, a memoir by Gayatri Prabhu, The Test of My Life by the cricketer Yuvaraj Singh. And of course, you have movies in case you're interested to examine the representation of movies, I mean, health in movies. You have Tare Zameen Par, dyslexia. You have Margarita with a Straw, cerebral palsy. My Brother Nikhil, which is about HIV/AIDS. And if you're from regional spaces, you can think of a movie like Merugam, which has HIV/AIDS as a supplemental theme. You have Tanmatra, which is a Malayalam movie starring Mohanlal, which is on Alzheimer's and so on. These are like regional movies which discuss this health, illness, things and so on. The multiple readers of illness narrative. Let me ask this question: who reads these narratives or illness narrative? So, Otto Frank, at the will of the body, gives you the answer. I quote, I write first to those who are now ill, but not just to them. Since we all will become ill someday, other readers may find this book useful as a way of considering what that will mean. I write also to those who care for the ill. So Otto Frank gives you three stakeholders. One, those who are ill now. Two, who will become ill someday. And three, those who care for the ill, which might include family members, caregivers, and health professionals. Similarly, Thomas Kuzer, in his book Recovering Bodies, Illness, Disability, and Life Writing, also identifies several stakeholders. One, those who are ill, those who are at risk, those who are caregivers, and those who are bereaved. The bereaved are those who survive illness through the death of others. Illness narratives, narrators, and the structure of illness narrative. Even before I introduce you to the narrators, I just wanted to introduce the key term pathography. And what is pathography? Pathography, the word pathography, emerges from pathie or pathy, which means suffering or illness in Greek. And the term pathography refers to an autobiographical, biographical, or fictional narrative about an experience of illness, disability, or illness behavior. I invite you to read this very interesting book called Reconstructing Illness, where this particular term is given a lot of importance, and it's one of the landmark books on health humanities by Anne Hunsaker Hawkins. Typically, or majority of illness narrative use the following narrative structure. The first one is discovery of being ill or feeling ill. The second phase is the diagnosis phase. The third one is hardships of treatment. And finally, most of the illness narrative have what is called a comic closure. And what is this comic closure? The comic closure is where the hero or the protagonist is much better than at the beginning. So this is a definition given by Thomas Kuzer. It's basically happy ending. Let me give you an example using the test of my life from cricket to cancer and back is a book by Yuvraj Singh published in 2013. And you know that the book, The Test of My Life, describes the trials and tribulations of Yuvraj Singh, who experiences lung cancer. So these are the different phases. So this book follows a conventional structure. That is, the first phase is where he discovers being ill or he feels ill. I quote, but also the fact that over the last 2 years, I had constantly felt my body was under attack from all sides. The second phase is the diagnosis phase, the moment of revelation. The moment of revelation is marked by the doctor's suggestion of cancer, leaving Yuvraj grappling with the gravity of the situation. I quote, what kind of tumor, doctor? It could be malignant. Before I could work out what he meant, his next four words were, it could be cancer. That's the second phase in the book. The third phase is hardships of treatment. Yuvraj captures the profound toll of his cancer treatment, where excruciating physical pain becomes inseparable from the psychological anguish. I quote, I felt suicidal. I was in physical pain, but I could no longer separate physical pain from mental disintegration. The last part of his book is what we call as comic closure. I explained to you it's a happy resolution. Here, Yuvraj inspires others by showing that overcoming adversity is possible through determination and strength. I quote, Yuvraj Singh 2012 is a post Stone Age man. If UV can, you can. It's one of the recurrent philosophy and expression in the book. Arthur Frank, in The Wounded Storyteller, identifies three narrative types: restitution narrative, quest narrative, and chaos narrative. Restitution narratives follow the formula of I was sick, but I better. So it's about turning to normal. That is what we call as the restitution narrative. In the quest narrative, illness is framed as kind of a journey of meaning, which is also a process of transformation. And the third kind of narrative is chaos narrative, where life never gets better. It's like you feel life is going from worst to worst. You always experience certain kind of disorderliness in life. So that kind of a narrative is called the chaos narrative. That said, such kind of neat categorization has been interrogated, questioned by many important writers. Let me give you a couple of them. The best example which interrogates that neat resolution is the recently published Ill Feelings, a book by Alicia Hattrick. This is from a chapter called Unrecovery. I quote, I desired a singular narrative, but the form, with its need to end in a place it did not begin, refused to accept my version of events. I originally proposed an order that followed the medical narrative that started with symptoms and ended in recovery, hoping to recover illness from cure. My version resisted order or could be ordered in any number of ways. So, this is a very important quote in the sentence, I mean, in the book Ill Feelings, where she is expressing her difficulty in fitting her life story into a particular linear, acceptable narrative form. And there are other writers who have also expressed how narrative, a typical way of arranging events within a story, may not be helpful. For example, you have critics like Ramon Cannon, Angela Woods, Kathleen Conway, and all of them have expressed the neat way how illness narrative unfolds. Finally, let me introduce you to some of the journals. I know some of you might be interested in health humanities. So let me give you a set of journals. So here is the list, and I just want you to pay attention to one or two very important ones. One is literature and medicine. That's the most esteemed and the prestigious journal in health humanities, and others include the Hastings Center Report, Journal of Medical Ethics, the Journal of Medicine and Philosophy, Culture, Medicine and Psychiatry, Theoretical Medicine, Literature and Medicine, Social Science and Medicine, Disability and Society, Disability Studies Quarterly, Journal of Medical Humanities, Journal of Women's Health, Ethnicity and Health, BMJ, AMA. If I were to order in terms of my interest or in terms of the prestige of the journal, I would rate Literature and Medicine as number one, followed by British Medical Journal or BMJ. Interestingly, there are several research centers, unfortunately not in India, but then there are so many research centers, and they also offer fellowships and things like that. So in case you are interested in chasing them, this is the list. Durham University Center for Medical Humanities in UK, King's College London, University of Leeds is another great place, University of Texas, Yale School of Medicine, Duke Global Health Institutes, and Medicine and the Muse program by Stanford Center for Biomedical Ethics. So these are some of the major research centers. There are a lot of resources out there, and they also offer you internship and fellowship programs. So in case you are interested, you may look into them. Now, what are the avenues for future research? In case you are interested in health humanities, these are the spaces that you should really look at. The first one is digital health humanities, comparative health humanities, post-humanism and health humanities, Indian vernacular health humanities, graphic medicine, which is my area of research, and decolonizing health humanities. Let's start with the first one, digital health humanities. So digital health humanities looks at the interaction of health and technology. Think of YouTube or Instagram Reels. Also, think of digital and computational tools which you can use to analyze or critique health narratives. The second is a comparative health humanities. Comparative health humanities examines health and illness across diverse cultures, nations, and social contexts. The idea here is, not everything is Western. We cannot homogenize the idea of health and narratives. So this is the second important field. And third one is post-humanism and health humanities. And the fourth one is Indian and vernacular health. This is something that I have been telling you. Not much attention is paid to Indian health humanities, especially the vernacular traditions. For example, Tamil, Malayalam, or whatever. Because the assumption here is, health is diverse and health is also culturally articulated in very specific way. So you can think of several such ones. I'm just thinking of a very interesting book called Cancer Vodile Chidi. It's a Malayalam book written by a very famous Malayalam actor, Innocent. So there are several local, vernacular, regional literatures which are not paid much attention. So this is one very potential area that you can seriously think of. The next one is graphic medicine. Some of you might know what it is. Graphic medicine is basically uses comics to discuss health issues. And finally, decolonizing health humanities, which is to say it critiques Eurocentric and colonial framework in health discourses. And they advocate for marginalized or alternative knowledges. For instance, think about Adivasi, tribal medicine, healthcare, and so on. Now, what are the key takeaway from this lecture? So these are the major points that we covered in the presentation. The first is health is cultural. That is to say, health is rooted in cultural narratives, practices, and tradition. Health is universal. That is to say, health transcends boundaries of nationality, culture, and identity. Health is political. Health intersects with power structures, policies, public life, systemic inequalities, and so on. Health is intersectional, which is to say, health is shaped by gender, sexuality, class, ability. And finally, health is relational. That is, health is not just an individual concern, but a collective. Now, those who are interested in downloading research articles, you can visit my webpage, an academia page where I have sort of uploaded all my articles. So you would see roughly 100 to 150 articles on health humanities. So if you're looking for some sample research articles, this is the place to go. And I have already forwarded a handout to Yuvraj, which sort of sums up the major important text. So I'm sure you would be receiving now or might have received it earlier. So I want you to go through all of them. And in case you are interested to get the PDF of it, please let me know. I'll be happy to send it across. The next one is introducing health humanities as a course. In case you are introducing or planning to introduce health humanities in your university or in your college, either as a major or as a minor or as an open elective, you can read my article called Teaching Health Humanities Challenges and Insight. This is an open access article, published by the University of Hyderabad as a part of their Indian Writing in English project. And if you are interested in writing to me, this is my full address, satya@gmail.com and satya@nitt.edu. So thank you so much for your patient listening. I know it's like 110 slides covered in 1 hour, 20 minutes. So thank you for your attention. Take care.
That's a wonderful session, sir.
Thank you,
It was well
Yuvraj.
done. You can call me Saravanan, sir. Yuvraj is
That's
my
what you
unofficial
prefer?
name.
Oh, all right.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you, Saravanan. Yeah. Thank you.
Dear participants, the session is over. You can post your questions either in the chat box or you can unmute yourselves and raise question to the Sir
Though
Satyaraj
I
Venkatesh.
prefer someone can talk to me directly, that would be
Sure,
fantastic.
sure, sir.
Yeah.
So you can unmute yourself and ask questions directly to Sir. So meanwhile, I have a question, sir.
Please do, Saravanan.
So most of our participants are from traditional arts and science background.
Exactly.
So how can we practically introduce medical humanities into the existing syllabi, sir?
Yeah, I mean, that is a structural and an institutional question, isn't it, Sharvana? So I
Yes, sir.
can advocate the usefulness of this program for your curriculum, but then I can't come and say, okay, please do it. I mean, I can't force or instruct your institution to do it. Now, one way to do perhaps is to introduce it as a certificate course because I'm very sure that there is a huge market for health humanities because it's a
Yes.
very protean discourse. You can use it to talk different things, right from Ayurveda, the medical pluralism, to how health is represented in movies and so on. So it covers a range of materials and range of periods, a lot of things. So one thing that you can do is to offer on an experimental basis what I call as a certificate course. Let's run it for 2 3 months and see how it is received and so on. That's one thing to do. The second thing that you can seriously think of is offer it as a minor course, which is like optional. So you offer it as an MA optional, all right? And then if students are interested, maybe that is accepted and you make it integrate into your course and so on. It's health humanities is like your environmental humanities or digital humanities. These are three, contemporary, very relevant discourses: digital, environmental, and health. And you can also integrate all the three in your course because environment also impacts your health.
Yes.
And that's what I have been telling you. The critical medical humanities is to see how larger than life forces interact and shape your health. And environment is a very good example for that. And why is everyone shouting about Delhi now? Because the pollution. And we are all
Yes.
scared that the pollution might affect the health. Do you see that? So this is a classic example of how environment impacts or shapes one's health. So the second option is to introduce it as an optional or as a minor paper. And my article, teaching health humanities, opportunities, insights, and challenges, which is already an online. If you want, I can send it across. Talks about how you can teach the course. As in, it gives you module one. What are the texts? What is the assignment that you have to do? It's kind of a pedagogical kind of a step. So I'm sure that would be very useful as well.
Is there any strategy to understand these medical terminology, sir, especially the medical jargons?
Now, I
How
want
to
to make it
understand it
clear
better?
there is no necessity that you should know the medical treatments, diagnosis. There is no question of medical jargon in health humanities. This is, kind of a disinformation or misinformation or myth about medical humanities. For instance, I'm not trained in any of these things. Like, I'm not a clinician, I'm not a physician, and whatever. I'm coming purely from a literature background. In fact, if you were to look at my history, professional history, my dissertation was on African American literature, right? It was
Yes,
not
yes, sir.
on health humanities. So I picked up over a period of time because I thought this field is very promising. So I don't think we need to expose ourselves to medical terms or terminologies to practice health humanities.
So there is a question in the chat box. Mrs. Gayatri raised a question, sir. My
Uh-huh.
doubt is related to research methodology. In this
Uh-huh.
area, if anyone wants to write an article,
Mhm.
is any survey needed to be done related to health and humanities?
No. I just want you to understand this very clearly. There are two methodological approaches to health humanities. One is cultural English, philosophical, cultural studies approach to health humanities. And the second one is a social sciences approach to health humanities. Is that clear, Gayatri?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't know whether she's around. The
Yes, sir. Yeah.
philosophical, the philosophical, cultural English studies approach to health humanities is exactly the way you would practice, rest of them. For example, you would do a deep textual analysis. You would practice slow critical thinking. You would contextualize the author, book, and so on. If you are pursuing a social science approach to it, then it's slightly different because you are thinking in terms of analysis. You are thinking in terms of quantitative methods. You are thinking of policy analysis. You are thinking of structured or semi structured interviews and so on. So please be very clear that these two approaches or methods are different. One is culture studies approach and the second one is a social science approach. Social science approach combines empirical with the qualitative study, but the culture studies approach doesn't factor in the empirical, the numbers, the statistics, and so on. So there is no point or there is no scope for data to be analyzed. I think I answered Gayatri's question.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Sir, will you offer the course in NPTEL or SWAYAM in the future, sir?
I'm planning to, Madan, thank you for that. So I know a lot of people are interested in this field and I might be doing it. I'm actually building the course, so it takes some time because it's like 12 to 15 hours and so on. So I'm actually thinking of modules and so on. So I
Yes, sir.
might do it in future. So you're most
Yes, sir.
welcome to register there as well.
Definitely. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Dear participants, the floor is open for the question and answer session. You can unmute yourself and ask questions.
Sir, good morning, good evening, sir.
Yeah, and do you mind introducing yourself, please?
Sir, I am Gopinath, and
Yes.
I am doing my research on autobiography of Indian cricketers.
Autobiography of Indian cricketers.
Yes, sir. And I have taken Sunil Gavaskar's Sunny Day. Please, a century is not enough, and Yuvraj Singh's the test of letters, playing it my way. So my question is, sir, talking about theoretical framework, which is suitable for me, sir. Like because just now you mentioned Yuvraj Singh's the test of my life. So is it affect theory or some theory? I want to know which theory is suitable for my research. Just clarify about.
But then, Gopinath sir, I don't work on sports narratives. You see,
Oh,
my reading of Yuvraj Singh is in the context of health humanities.
okay, okay, sir, okay, sir.
Right? So I'm not reading Yuvraj Singh as a cricketer, or I'm not talking about cricket celebrity fandom and so on. So I have no idea about what kind of theory might be useful to read sports narratives. So I'm sorry I can't help you here. Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sure. Tarvanan, I think there is one question here. Do you want to read it out so that others can also follow it? This is Parvata Rani from Shastra in the chat
Yes, sir.
box.
I'll read it, sir.
Yeah, sure.
If we focus on medical humanities, or narratives which work of Arthur W. Frank will be better, sir? At the will of the body or the wounded storyteller?
Okay. I mean, both of them are brilliant books. In case you want me to give an order to this, I would suggest that you should start reading The Wounded Storyteller first, followed by At the Will of the Body. The Will of the Body is slightly philosophical. Wounded Storyteller would really help you because it talks about different, narratology, which I explained, the restitution narrative, chaos narrative. So that's my answer. Yeah.
And also, Ms. Gayatri stated, when it comes to health humanities, I wonder in this era of many health degeneration, even in youngsters facing heart issues, etc., studies like this won't be aggravating panic vibes, sir. Or in other words, how to hinge on optimistic research, sir.
I didn't understand. Maybe Sharwan needs to paraphrase it for me because I think someone is mistaking me for a doctor, which I am not. So I can't comment on.
Sir, sorry for making it difficult. Sir, I'm Gayatri M. Doing
Hello,
my,
Gayatri.
I'm assistant professor in Kingston Engineering College, Vellore.
Wonderful.
Actually, of late, we have lot of issues. Even in my college, students are very they're sick, lot of sick, even heart issues. So
Yeah, I
when
agree.
attending to this at FTP, I'm really drawn towards doing certain research
Good,
literally on health
good,
humanities. So
good.
when we do certain studies like this, it is almost creating a kind of pessimistic idea, like how the
It
health in
is.
this era, like pandemic, as you stated, pandemic,
Mm-hmm,
all
mm-hmm,
created a lot of negativity nowadays. So how to fix on in doing research only on optimistic base? So how can my
Oh, of
research?
course, of course.
Yeah.
If you're so much pissed off with, say, the negativity around health, illness, disease, and so on, and you don't want to read it, there is also an option to think of health humanities in terms of healing, recovery, recalibration, rewilding. So these are the positive aspects of health humanities as well. Am I answering your question, Gayatri?
Yes, sir. Not only
Yeah. So
mentioning.
instead of focusing on illness and disease, you can use the literary texts to examine how these individuals cope with the disease. So coping, healing, curing, these may be your, what you call the optimistic way of doing or engaging with health humanities. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Even pandemic
Absolutely.
literature can be viewed. So
Absolutely. Provided you have literary evidences which shows you how people cope with these kinds of crisis moments, personally and collectively. I'm sure there are so many such texts which does that. In fact, we have written a book as well, pandemics and epidemics in cultural bodies. So if you can read, there is one chapter on healing practices in pandemic times.
okay, so you are suggesting that it will be like kind of coping mechanism alone,
Yeah,
even.
that's one way of doing it. But then what happens in most of the texts, it's also about refashioning, refashioning of the self. That's what we call it. So how do you refashion yourself? So it's not just coping, which is a reductive psychological term, but then there are larger questions as well. For instance, think of cure, think of rewilding, think of recalibration. Um, I mean, these are very useful terms to think of health humanities, other than the negatives that you were saying.
Okay, thank you for answering us. So the
Sure.
research might help people to look back
Very
to the
true. Very
health
true.
because
Absolutely. In
people
a
are
positive terms. In positive
wasting.
terms.
Yeah,
Yes, exactly. I agree with
thank
you.
you.
Yes.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
Anybody
Hello,
else?
sir. Good evening, sir. I
Yeah.
am Cruz from Pune. Actually, I am a school teacher.
Oh,
I'm
hi.
not working in college. So how could this be used in school settings?
Why can't you have sessions on well-being? In fact, schools are the right places to start thinking about these important issues, especially the teenage spaces. So why can't you talk about well-being? Why can't you approach health humanities from a positive terms? What does well-being mean? What do you mean by complete health? So there are a lot of scope to think of health humanities from positive terms as well. And the key term would be to look at health from a well-being point of view. Hello, Cruz?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I got
so
your point.
that's one thing.
Yeah.
The second thing that you can also talk about is mental issues, the mental stress.
Yeah, we do have school counselors.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So these are all aspects of health.
Do you have any studies related to like literature being used as
Of
medicine?
course, of course. As I said, you can check my website. It has more than 150 articles, studies, approaches, how to read the text, literary text, cultural analysis, film analysis, and so on. So all of them are freely accessible. So just visit my academia.edu. I'm sure you would get a lot of them.
Okay, thank you. Can you share your website in
Yeah,
the
I will do that. I will
chat?
do that. Yes,
Sure.
I will do that. Oh, you want it
Thanks.
on chat?
Yes, sir. That will be easier for us. Or through
Sharvanan, did
mail
you
also.
forward? Yeah, sure, I will do that. Sharvanan, did you
Yes, sir.
forward my PDF to all the participants?
Yes, sir. I forwarded this morning itself.
Okay, great. I'm sure the link is out there. The link is out there, but then I can also figure it out. Yeah,
So one more question from the participant side.
sure.
Professor Swadika
Uh-huh.
from Sri Krishna Swami College. Good evening, sir. Does medical humanities also include mental illness?
Of course.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
You are very much audible, sir.
Who asked this question?
Swadika.
Yeah, Swatika, of course. I think I showed you in one of my slides the various categories. And the second category in the list was mental illness. For instance, you can think of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. You have schizophrenia. There are several conditions, and it does come under health humanities. Yes. Depression.
So this is Swadika. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible and clear, Swatika.
So just a doubt. You did mention that we do take in medical illnesses into medical humanities, but
Yeah.
will it not coincide with the psychological analysis of the
No,
person?
no. Psychological analysis is different from a cultural analysis.
Okay.
For example, I gave you 4 different ways how you can approach it. Affect theory,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
That said, Swatika, please also understand that health humanities is an interdisciplinary field,
Okay. Okay.
which means you can also draw, if necessary, from other disciplines, including psychology,
Right.
to substantiate your argument. But
Okay.
then it can't be the dominant tone in your article, I'm afraid, because you're coming from a culture studies or English studies background. You
Yeah.
cannot completely rely on psychological model to argue a case.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another question from the participant side.
Yeah.
Julia Pradeepa from Loyola College has posted a question. Does a background in the humanities improve a physician's diagnostic accuracy and observational skills?
Very good question, Julia. Yes, we have number of statistical, data which says that these physicians, because they undergo a program in arts and humanities, it actually increases or improves or enhances communication, diagnostic skills, even empathy. So we have enough data, qualitative and quantitative. how doing a course in arts humanities would improve or enhance their capabilities? Yes, the right answer is yes. Thank you, Julia. That's a good question.
So, Professor Madan has raised a question. Kindly quote one classical example from the poetry genre.
Now, off the cuff, I can think of Sylvia Plath. Very good example for, I mean, she would very naturally fit into health humanities. So is Virginia Woolf. But then poet, definitely Sylvia Plath.
While we were discussing, you also mentioned about the confessional poet, Emily Dickinson.
Absolutely. That's also a very good example uh, because Dickinson has many poems on pain, anxiety, grief, and so on. In fact, there are so many writers who do it, even Keats to some extent.
Yes, sir.
Many of his artistic vision is shaped by his TB, and he died young at the age of 26. So that's also one good example.
Anybody else would like to ask a question?
So how about the course in your institution, sir? Do you offer it in your institution?
And who is this? Madan again?
Yes, sir, right, sir.
Oh, yes, I do. And I have shared how I teach, what kind of assignments I give in that particular essay, teaching health humanities. That should really help. And that particular essay I have cited in my handout. So in case you are seriously planning to introduce this in your, you know, institution, please read that essay and come back to me if you have any questions.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So how do students respond, sir?
Oh, because it's NIT Trichy. They love humanities courses because that gives them a lot of relief from their technology and science courses. So they welcome. In fact, I teach a course called Comics, an introduction to comic study. So there's a huge demand for these kinds of courses in NIT Trichy, at least. I don't know about other institutions, but then highly rated, highly appreciated courses.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sure. That's correct. Madhumita is correct. Plath's poem deal with mental health and trauma. That's correct.
So could you explain how can we include medical humanities in the post-humanism once again?
Oh, well, because, as I said in my presentation, the third phase of health humanities is called critical, humanities. And the critical medical humanities pays a lot of attention to how, it pays attention to the collective. To talk of collective health or to talk of collectivity and community building is the core, the bedrock of post-human thinking. Do you get that overlap?
Yes,
When you think of collective, when you think of community, when you think beyond human race as a category, then you are threading into the post-human. So when you talk of the post-human and health, you're actually looking at the well-being, not just of the human beings, but the well-being of everything. And the assumption here is if they are not well, it also impacts you. So
Yes.
the One Health model that I taught in the presentation is a fine example of post-humanism in the context of health.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Saranan sir, if there are no questions, with the permission of the speaker, we shall close the session then.
Please
Sure,
go
sir.
ahead.
Sure,
Sure.
sure, sir.
Yes, sir.
One more question from the participant side. Shahin, good evening, sir. It was an insightful session indeed. Can you confirm whether the mental illness of the character called
Yes.
Bertha Mason in Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte can be addressed through health humanities? This
Absolutely.
type of canonical text can be approached.
I think I answered that in the presentation. There are two paths. One is to choose canonical literature, and option two is to choose non-canonical or illness-based narrative. So definitely you can go ahead and use humanities, health humanities lens to read Jane Eyre. And I think there are enough literature secondary sources on this particular. Yeah. Go ahead, Shahi.
Sure. Okay. So thank you, Dr. Satyaraj Venkatesan, for profoundly enlightening this session. So as we draw the curtains on this fourth day of our academic journey, it's my privilege to propose a formal vote of thanks. First and foremost, our deepest gratitude goes to our resource person, Dr. Satyaraj Venkatesan, sir, despite your demanding schedule at NIT Trichy. You accepted our invitation and delivered a session that was both intellectually rigorous and deeply moving, sir. Thank you for opening our eyes to the healing power of narratives. I owe a debt to our gratitude to the management, Reverend Dr. Praveen Peter, Reverend Dr. Maria Anthony, the patron and co-patrons, their visionary leadership and unwavering support for this interdisciplinary research. They are the pillars upon this FDP, sir. We also thank our heads of the department, Professor N. Aruldas, Dr. Mary Jennifer, for allowing us to do this FDP. Your meticulous planning and coordination have ensured the seamless flow of this session. Thanks to Dr. Julian for introducing our guests to the participants. Finally, to our participants and scholars and the faculty members from across the country, thank you for your vibrant presence. Once again, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Sacred Heart. Thank you, Sharavanan, Madan, and Julian. And thank you for the wonderful participants as well. Have a good night. And thank you. I'll meet you sometimes. Bye. Take care.
Yes, sir.
Bye, sir. Dear participants, the feedback link will be posted in the chat box. You can post it. You can post your attendance and register your feedback.
Saravanan sir, I shall leave the meeting.
Sure, sir. Thank
Okay.
you very much, sir.
Thank you, Saravanan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dear participants, kindly fill the feedback form carefully. It is for the attendance and also for the certification process. Dear participants, the meeting link will be open till 8 o'clock. Those who are still in the online, kindly submit the attendance and feedback form, which is there in the chat box, and leave the meeting. Thank you.